This type with a small opening is very difficult to do it freehand without a boring bar. So I'm going to turn one similar to this, and will you decide what kind of wood to use? Just about any wood, it's okay. But you have another choice between turning side grain like this or a grain like this one here, right? And the techniques are a little bit different. Let me see if I can draw this on this. Can we switch over to the whiteboard?
Yeah.
Do I have to do anything here?
No. Yeah, you're going to have to share your screen.
So the approach is different. You always want to cut downhill, and I was in a Zoom demo about 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you guys know this Irish guy Pat Carroll. Someone in the audience made a comment. He says that's the most confusing term, downhill cutting. So that's why I'm trying to do this graphically for you. All right. So you got a piece of wood here. That's the grain direction, right? So that's the end grain. And you can do it this way. When you do it this way, you cut downhill like this, or downhill like this. On the other hand, let me get another, let's see, get a new, how do I get a new page? Well, I can just go ahead and erase this stuff here. And when you do side grain bowl, you got grains running this way. And then you cut this way from the top out instead of in this way. Is that clear? So that's the difference between end grain and side grain. And I had planned to do an end grain using the blank that I just showed you, but I just found out there are cracks in there that I don't feel comfortable with. So I'm going to do this piece here and start from the very beginning, from turning all the way from turning the tenon that I'm going to be chucking with. I'm going to put this on. Can you still hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yep.
So I've been telling my friends that I live on the edge. I don't use this worm chuck. In other words, I don't drive a screw in there. I just use friction drive here. And to me, there's enough friction there, and also on the tailstock end, I have a center that's stabbed into the wood. Hardly anywhere for this piece of wood to go, and the top is fairly flat. It's in contact with almost all the four jaws tightly. So let me let's see. Okay.
Getting tool rest.
So I'm cutting from inside out, like the second example that I put on the whiteboard a minute ago. I just upped the speed a little bit. I'm going to lower the tool rest a little bit. Oh, by the way, this piece of wood is mesquite. And my preferred chuck is Vicmark, which has dovetail jaws. So I'm going to cut a dovetail tenon on it. I rarely turn green wood. Most of the time I turn dry wood. And this piece of mesquite is very dry. I don't know, I've had it for a couple years. And for those of you who turn green wood, one of the big differences is the temperature. The shavings that come off could be pretty warm. Sometimes it could be hot. But if you cut it right, you approach the cutting edge properly, it shouldn't get too hot. I'm going to turn it off and see if I got all the flat surfaces off. We're getting pretty close. This piece of mesquite came from South Texas. They have the prettiest mesquite down there. Usually they're like reddish or pinkish colored. and a very, very pleasant aroma when you cut it. You know, when I turn something like this, and I do a demo, I feel like people are watching grass grow, or even worse. If you have any question, don't hesitate to interrupt. Yeah. Like a what? My favorite wood is mesquite, if I could get hold of it. But I'm cheap. I don't want to pay money for it, and that's hard to do. Mesquite is easy to turn and easy to finish. One of the problems with mesquite is oftentimes there's ring check. So you have to have a real large tree to get something worthy out of it. I'm using a skew to finish that tenon. When I cut this dovetail, I just eyeball it. I don't, you know, some people would buy a tool that has a proper angle. I guess it's like 7 degrees. I don't spend my money that way. And you want to make sure the shoulder here is true, because that actually provides more holding for you than just the jaws. So I just take a straight edge and make sure there's no light coming through. If anything, the edges should be higher than the center. I think it's probably safe enough to reverse it now. I make a habit of marking on the tenon no matter what I do, just in case I have to dismount it, remount it. And with these dovetail jaws, I can get back right on the spot. Steve, what's the maximum speed on this pulley? Really? I'm gonna move it a little bit closer. Okay. Breathing equipment. You know, it's a very personal thing. Some people are allergic to certain trees, and some of us aren't. And I am fortunate that I haven't had any problem with any wood that I've encountered. And mesquite, I don't have any problem. But no matter what, I use this Papra. You know, it's got two filter cartridges here, and I used to use a 3M AS40 AS400, but it's cumbersome to use. So sometimes I end up not using it. And this JSP Paracap is lightweight, and actually today I'm using it, and you could probably hardly hear the noise from the fan. With the AS400, there's a lot of noise. Yeah. Does that answer your question? This one still has quite a bit of bark on here. And I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with it. I like the southwestern, I guess it's Hopi Indian shape. Almost like it too much that I hardly ever deviate from it. And that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, I think I'm going to get this bark off. If at home, I would probably want to save this bark here because it makes it more interesting. But for tonight's purpose, I don't want to end up with a broken piece. As a rule, you always shape the outside, and then when you hollow, you check the wall thickness to match the profile, the outside shape. I think that's going to be pretty safe. This piece of mesquite is very interesting. It's still got some sapwood in it, so it gives you a little contrast. The brown wood and kind of yellowish sapwood.